How's everybody doing today? Welcome to today's Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association Reasonable Doubt. I'm here with my friend, colleague, fellow host, Justin Harris. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm here also with our very special guest. He likes to come around whenever he can, the one and the only David Ryan. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Glad the Community Volunteer Fire Department gave me the night off.
Nice. Well, that'll work.
We've tried to have you on the show so many times. Have you been on? You've been on once before, right, David?
Oh, about 7 times.
Okay, well, once in the last 5 or 6 years.
He's been on for a minute.
But you're usually putting out fires, like literal fires, on Thursday nights.
On Thursday nights, I work as a volunteer firefighter from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., so I'm just not available.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you could be here tonight.
Let me ask you: are you you've been on the front lines of some of the major, happenings and occurrences during the time, haven't you? Like, I mean, you're out there. You were out there at Harvey. You were out there in some of these more recent floodings. Is that right?
But yes, as I've got a commendation for the work I did at the fire department for Harvey, for the tax flood, for longevity. So we've been busy.
I was going to ask you so we've all seen Backdraft, at least a lot of us seen Backdraft. Have you ever had an experience? What comes to mind when you think back, like, whoa, probably could have died there, or maybe, whoa, most compelling kind of compassionate experience that you have as a firefighter? At least one that comes to mind that you could share.
Why does Backdraft have anything to do with that question?
Because firemen, they put their lives on the line, man.
Yeah, but there's no firemen in that movie. They're all actors.
Well,
anyway, I like the question.
Well, always it's very dangerous when we're fighting a fire. We had one back in June where we knew that the people were out of the house, but the problem was literally between the time we saw the house and we pulled up, the fire jumped to the next house, and we did not know whether or not those folks were in. So that was pretty scary. I wound up taking the hose, and going down to put down that fire, and then we knew the fire back. Then came back and put out the fire in the house that was going down.
JV, what are you doing?
I was turning off the audio. I think I messed that audio up.
Oh.
But
there you are.
I'd say it's interesting. As a criminal defense lawyer, I guess I got tired of looking at the pictures of the bad stuff and wanted to be right there on the scene.
Do you respond to car wrecks or crime scenes or things like that?
All the time. In fact, 85% of what firefighters do is actually more emergency medical. Been on the scene of an alleged rape victim, lots of DWIs, a couple of murders, that kind of thing. It's one of those things where a firefighter is there to save lives. We don't care who did it. We don't care what happened. What we care about is saving lives. And that is kind of why nobody's ever mad when they see a firefighter coming, but maybe they're not so happy when they see the police coming.
Yep, I agree. I don't get nervous when I see firefighters, okay? Not that I get nervous when I see cops either, but, I get a little nervous. I get a little nervous.
Yeah, you do.
A little nervous.
Come on, JV, your wife makes you nervous.
Oh, hey, well, fair enough, Dad. Why you always gotta bring in the wife, man? Kidding. Anyways, let's talk about some law.
We've had some big happenings in the last. We haven't been on for 2 weeks, but we lost Yeah,
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. How about that?
Awful.
It is so 2020 that she passed before the election. She was a great legal mind. Those of us on the criminal defense side will remember that she frequently sided with Scalia on the opinions that really help people accused of crimes to confront their accusers, to confront the state's evidence against them, to be safe on reasonable searches and seizures. Uh, Regardless of your views on other areas of the law, you still have to respect what she did for women in the law, what she did for women in this country, and what she did for the accused in uh, all of her opinions and in her work as an attorney.
You know, I was listening to an NPR story about her, and initially they thought, well, I guess the Democrats thought that she was going to be too moderate. She wasn't going to be as big as liberal or as progressive as she was. And they were actually concerned that she wasn't going to do enough to push the agenda or of that particular progressive platform. And turned out, her history speaks very different.
Well, you have to remember, JV, she was a great legal mind, which, again, and she gave that tribute to Scalia when he passed, that he forced you to go back and look at the law and see what is appropriate and what is not. It will probably shock some of our viewers that she thought Roe versus Wade was wrongly decided. She didn't. She agreed with the result, but she thought the opinion, and many liberal as well as conservative commentators on the law say that opinion was wrongly decided. She believed it was an equal protection argument and not this penumbras and emanations. She, like a lot of legal scholars, have said this is trash. This is not appropriate. Uh, Many people who did support Roe versus Wade thought that the other opinion about it being a Ninth Amendment issue of privacy was more appropriate. And she took a completely different view, which, if you analyze, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're pro-life, you're pro-choice, whether you believe abortion should be legal at all times or only when rape, incest, or life of the mother is involved. She believed it was an equal protection argument, and when you look at her argument, it makes a lot more sense than the actual plurality decision does in Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So should they fill her seat or what?
Well, first,
What
let
do
me
you
be very upfront. I didn't like what happened to Merrick Garland. I really did not appreciate what happened on that. He was nominated. The fact the Senate refused to take action, voting up or down, was very disappointing to me. And I don't think Merrick Garland would have been a bad justice. Now, I am exceptionally pleased, doggone near ecstatic, with Gorsuch. He has been fantastic, not only to criminal defense, I think, but on all areas of law. And I think what happened to Kavanaugh was an abomination. That was totally inappropriate. The president is.
And we have a Supreme Court justice named Brett.
That'd be his first name.
That's the abomination.
That's funny. It's funny, man.
That's between you and the Bretts in the audience. In my view, the president has the absolute right, as Barack Obama had as well when he nominated Merrick Garland, to nominate someone. Now, what does the Senate do from this point? Again, I didn't like what happened to Merrick Garland. I thought he should have gotten a vote. So I don't have a problem with the idea that there should be a vote. Whether or not that is the right constitutional or the right thing politically to do, those are for other people to talk about. Talking about the Constitution, the president has the right to nominate when there's a vacancy. The Senate gives the right to advise and consent. If
Is it
they do it rapidly, they do
Is
it
it
rapidly.
hypocritical? Is it hypocritical? I think
I
it's
don't think so.
hypocritical, but I think it's politics, right?
Well, remember, it's always politics. It's always politics. You cannot name any member of the court, going back to Washington, that it was not political. Okay? So it's always going to be political. But for the Republicans, this is literally the moment they've been waiting for like 40 years.
I agree.
This chance to flip the court, and who knows what the public is going to do. Remember, in 2016, nobody thought the president of the United States was going to be the president of the United States. They thought it was going to be someone else. This is their opportunity. To Trump's credit, whatever else you think about him, and trust me, I'm not particularly a fan, he has held true to his word on what he's going to do with the courts. He has nominated the people he has nominated. He has, even if he's a one-termer, he will literally change the court for generations. This is the moment they've been waiting for. I understand politically why they would say, we have to take advantage of this. We don't know what's going to happen. Again, I don't like what happened to Merrick Garland, but that is what happened.
I mean, I think the Dems would move on it if they had the opportunity. I mean, I don't see why
I
they
agree.
wouldn't.
If this was a Democratic Congress with a Democratic president, they would be doing exactly what the Republicans are doing.
Well, I don't see how leadership.
We're lawyers, and taking us out of the politics, okay, that's a very different issue. My personal choice, even though I am also a devout Roman Catholic, is not Barrett. I would go with Lagora. That would be my personal choice. She has a much longer judicial track record. On the politics side, she's from Florida. She's Hispanic. She's a female. You're going to put the Democrats in a real tough spot trying to criticize a Hispanic where Trump is making the inroads with Hispanics. A woman, when you're the party of women, from Florida, which is a state, which is likely to determine who wins this election. But on the law, I kind of like her judicial philosophy a lot better.
Hey, look, the Democrats are not the party of race and gender. Okay, we're equal opportunists.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're the party of identity politics.
You lost me at party.
Okay?
I'm not even gonna get into the political
please
thing.
Don't get me wrong. I'm giving very serious look at the Libertarian candidate.
Trump will thank you for that, David Ryan.
Yeah, but I don't think you would like my vote otherwise, Justin.
Speaking of judges,
God Almighty!
Remember, I'm a card-carrying Republican. I don't like this guy.
Yeah, well then give up the card.
I wasn't anybody but Clinton.
Give up the card.
First time around, and I'm not. I love what he's done with the military.
So what the hell? What has he done with the military? What has he done with the military? He gave them a raise.
He's spending money we don't have.
One at a time.
No, there's not a single thing that he has done. He thinks the people who put their lives on the line are suckers and losers. Like, no, he's gaslighting everyone that votes for him.
And nobody has agreed that he actually said that, Justin.
Oh, BS.
Hey, look.
Come on. Does any of that stuff sound like a stretch of the imagination coming out of Donald Trump's mouth?
Justin, Burisma, that's all I got to say. And by the way, the Attorney General of California, you look at what she did, and she's likely to be president in 2 years if they win.
Look, I'll tell you this. I had a serious problem
Kamala Harris is a hard no. if he had picked the woman from Butterfield, I believe it was, Thai.
Butterfield?
I think it was her name, Butterfield. Thai woman, veteran, lost both legs in a.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'd be all over Biden right now. Trust me, I would be voting for Biden if that had been the pick. I would have done
Biden be
that.
all over you. Kidding. Hey, speaking of judges, let's talk about some of the CJC stuff. How about let's change it up?
Yeah, David Ryan, you do a lot of work with the task force for TCDLA and HECLA on COVID-19 and jury response. This is going to be a real cold transition from politics and Ruth Bader Ginsburg to this, but what's going on there? What can you tell us?
Well, again, the last thing, just to leave the Ginsburg thing away, let's honor her memory. She was a brilliant justice.
Absolutely.
And there's plenty of time to argue the politics later. That'll come Saturday when the president makes his nomination. But until then, let's just remember what a great judge she was. On the COVID-19 stuff, as you guys know, I have real problems with the NRG jury selection.
Tell us about what that means for people who haven't been as intimate with us with it as we have.
In Houston, they have rented out an arena down by the football stadium that gets used frequently, literally to put cattle in for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And the mostly civil judges have decided that what we need to do is start picking juries there. They have 4 different places you're supposed to go and try and pick these juries. These people are so spaced out that you literally cannot see them all.
You mean socially distant? You're not calling the civil judges spaced out?
Correct. They're literally, every seat is 6 feet apart, and they're bringing in 65 people. I have been there. I've got pictures. Let them hold me in contempt. But I have the pictures, and you cannot see the entire room. It's physically impossible to do. There are posts to hold up the roof that these people sit behind. There are so spaced out, you can't see everything. Additionally, they're limiting you to 2 people to keep social distancing at the table. Well, as a criminal defense lawyer, my client has to participate. He has to be there. So how do I get help to watch this room? I can't. Okay? Another problem is that they've decided, truly against constitutional law, that these people will be able to mask and wear face shields, and they only have to pull down their mask when they're speaking. This is a constitutional violation. We have to be able to read faces, because in jury selection, we have to be able to read faces. We have to be able to read body movements. If you can't see 1/3 of the room, you can't read body movements. If somebody is smirking, for example, okay, smiling, smirking, frowning, I can't see any of this.
That's because you use so much Botox.
It's not just about reading eyes. It's about reading everything. Okay? Because there are a lot of, as a poker player will tell you, tells. There are things you're going to know. When a juror starts frowning when you're saying things, for example, about the right to remain silent, and they're like, no, that guy's got to speak. And you're trying to tell me I've got 45 minutes to pick a jury, and I've got to go through 65 different people about whether or not they can agree that you have the right to remain silent, and you cannot consider that. And I'm supposed to be going one by one. Contrary to popular myth, not every one of these rooms have individual microphones. Some of them, they have to actually walk up to a microphone to speak at.
The juror?
Yes.
The juror.
It's like a talk show. Like you're gonna have to
exactly. It's quite literally like you're on the Phil Donahue show, and I've got to
most
run
of the
around
time
like
I
Phil
ask,
Donahue. What do you got to say? What do you got to say?
Can
How
you
can I
elaborate
see
on
what
how,
anybody else is saying?
yeah. Can
most
you
of the time
tell
I
us-
ask a question, I'm not, I don't care who I'm asking, what the reaction or the answer is from the person I'm asking. I don't care what juror number 13 thinks. I want to see what everyone else is thinking, is how they're reacting to my question to juror number 13 or juror number 13's answer.
Justin, we're in agreement. So this is absolutely unconstitutional. You know, and I know Kim Ogg is not a favorite of people right now. To her credit, she and her people have also expressed serious reservations about this. The district attorney in Dallas says there's no way to do it constitutionally. So we know there are a lot of people against it. On the other hand, Judge Schaefer, when past President Pat McCann questioned him at NRG about this, he literally put up his hand and said, "We've heard the objections from the defense bar. We've heard the objections from the prosecutors. We're moving forward."
We don't care.
Yeah, right. This is about black robe disease, not the Constitution.
You know,
Okay,
and I also
I'm
think
going to
that
move a docket. Too many cases are backing up. And obviously, we know there are at least 2 judges on the criminal side in Harris County that are basically daring somebody to reverse them. They're daring criminal defense lawyers to refuse to participate in the trial. And unfortunately, the district attorney Ogg has not decided to join forces with us, even though she has her own concerns about it, that no, we can't do this. You cannot do this. You cannot dismiss this case with prejudice, especially when the defendant is saying, I don't want to do this. I'm not insisting on a speedy trial. I'll sit and wait my time in custody until I can get a fair and impartial jury.
Right, right. There are defendants. I'd imagine there are defendants out there that are saying, you know what? I don't care. Let's rock and roll this NRG. I'm not saying that every one of them is, but I'm sure that there's some that are like, okay, we'll go. Versus all these defendants who are being pushed to trial. At least mine are. I'm set there October 5th again. They're like, hey, I don't need this business. I don't mind sitting in jail for a little bit longer, or staying on, if they're on bond, staying on bond a little bit longer, and let somebody else go be the test case. So, you know, Ron,
And JB, we all know there are probably at least 100 defendants in custody that are willing to go to trial right now. So why are you forcing someone to trial and saying, I'm willing to wait, when you've got somebody who's saying, I'm ready for trial right now.
I don't want to wait.
Let's go.
I know the
I
risk.
won't
Let's
waive
go
this
forward.
stuff. Let's go to trial.
Right.
you know, so there's one. So for the viewers, they have different pens, right? Like voir dire pens, where the person has to go to this, like you're on the Phil Donahue show and talk about how you're biased because we too have been molested as a child. Like, who's going to do that in this mic, right? The other thing, the other venue is like a stadium. And I don't know how the person, where they're supposed to have mics every, at every seat, which I've seen. I don't know how loud those mics get. Additionally, I can only imagine 60 people with mics at their mouth, breathing, coughing, making comments, and just not knowing where that's coming from.
Well, the other problem is, JV, although as a criminal defense attorney, if you're forced down there and they've overruled all your objections and there's nothing you can do, you absolutely have to insist on picking your jury in the pavilion. The seats are individually microphoned. At least they're all in a way you can look at them all. The problem becomes literally after the fourth row, you can't see anything. And if they're wearing shields, we were laughing beforehand about the light bouncing off the top of my head. Well, these guys are wearing plexiglass masks. the light is going to bounce off of their masks. You're not off of their shields. You're not going to be able to see anything. So I don't see anything. All I know is I have a warm body sitting there that if I ask a question specifically of juror number 64, that he'll answer. Hopefully, if he's not asleep.
I know I had prepared also a written, because apparently the objections to the array have to be made in writing, and so we filed a pre seating of the array motion, saying that we're going to be objecting because this is how we believe it's going to be, and then on the day of we actually created an amendment to that motion that incorporates the initial motion with all the case law to challenge whether or not the array is a fair cross section of our community, where we have fill in the blanks. So we have Asian, African American, whites, non-whites, and so you can fill that in the blank once we actually get the array, once we get the panel, and we can see, okay, there's, out of a 60 panel, there's 50 white people, 1 black, 1 Asian, and 2 others or whatever. That very well may not be reflective of what, right, I was a little bit less, right? That may not be reflective of what a fair cross-section of our community is. We filed that motion, and it has Houston's demographics are this, and we're going to supplement that on the day of after we count the individuals, and we're going to list it there and show that it's not a fair cross-section of our community, if it in fact is not. Additionally, though, and this is something interesting, maybe David or Justin, I'd imagine the veneer cards should be made part or incorporated. As a defense attorney, you say, well, we object to this being a fair cross-section of the community. Here's our count and then admit the juror cards as part of your motion into the record. I thoughts?
Well, as you guys know, I'm fairly aggressive in trial, and I generally try to refuse to turn over my jury cards. And if the court insists on it, I insist it's on the record, and I insist that the court include it as part of the record. And unfortunately for me, every judge who's ever refused to include it as part of the record turned out into an acquittal or a sentence that we didn't want to appeal. Okay, we were very happy with what happened, but it's one of those things you've got to insist on. Now, one of the things I worry about, because it's not so much the First and 14th Courts of Appeals I worry about, it's more about the 9 wise souls and which are all white Republicans, who will say, well, you didn't provide us what you had before COVID, so therefore your population breakdown versus who actually showed up anyway doesn't matter to us. This is harmless error, or you didn't preserve the objection.
Right.
And this is one of the things, as you guys know, I have been preaching nonstop. Guys, you've got to understand juror error. It's one of the few areas of the law where harmless error at this point is not part of the law. And we have to force them to prove what partisan hacks they are, or to follow their law. You're supposed to be a Republican judge who follows the law. This is the law. The law is, I'm supposed to have this. Now you're going to overrule it, which 20 years ago we saw when the Mansfield Court took over this Court of Criminal Appeals, and we had a lot of things under Texas law that were much more beneficial to defendants than the U.S. Constitution gave under the Texas Constitution. And they did away with them all and said, no, we're just going with what the U.S. Constitution has. We don't care that Texas gave more. We're doing away with it. So we need to force them to prove what they are. You guys know, some of your audience probably knows, I'm a card-carrying Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a liberal by any stretch of the imagination. But I do believe in due process. I do believe in stare decisis. The fact that the law means what it says, and unless it is wholly egregious, such as separate but equal, that was overturned by Brown versus Board of Education. Uh, uh, if it's not that kind of egregious, you leave it alone, and it's up to the legislature to change it. These are constitutional rights. These are not technicalities. These should not be subject to the whim of people on either side deciding, well, I just don't like this law and the legislature hasn't gotten around to changing it, so I'm going to change it. Or people who say, you know, I know what the legislature said, but this is what they really meant. All of that is, untenable. The law means what it means.
We got a couple of updates in the chat. So I'm trying to share and I can't, but Ronnie's helping seat 2 juries tomorrow, and he sent a photo of the pens. So you got the big pavilion that have mics at every seat, but apparently he went today and they have ended up putting microphones at every seat in the pens now. And he showed me a picture. I'm trying to share it, but each seat has a mic now too, so you don't have to do the come on down.
In the pavilion, that was the way it worked.
Yeah.
In one of the 3 curtain rooms, they had that, but in the other 2, they did not. They had stand-up microphones.
That's what I thought too.
How well sound insulated is it? Because if we got 3 different rooms going with microphones, is there going to be crosstalk and?
Well, when Pat McCann and I toured the facilities, we actually got to talk to the sound guys.
Nice.
And they literally said, look, we put down these curtains, but yes, you're going to hear everything. The plan is not to use the middle room to try to muffle it unless they absolutely have to. They told us it was absolutely possible to do it in a way where it was soundproof, but the county didn't want to pay the money because, after all, apparently the Constitution is on a cost-benefit analysis,
right,
and not on the reality. And by the way, that's your Democratic commissioner's court.
Funny. Okay. Also,
I'm sure the Republicans would have been all for spending that money, David. You're right. You're right.
Hey, look. Also, so Sean Darvishi asked a question. Is it going to be the same judges conducting the voir dire and then trying the case? I have talked to Judge Wright, and he said he's going to be seating that jury and listening to testimony. I thought I heard Judge Singer saying that today as well. I know when I was going to be sat in Judge Johnson's court, she was going to conduct the voir dire as well as hear the testimony.
The original decision that Regional Judge Susan Brown had proposed and Judge Schaefer had proposed was that visiting judges would conduct voir dire, and then other judges would conduct, the sitting court would actually conduct the trial. That met with such blowback, not only on the criminal side, but even on the civil side, that no, we want the actual judge, that a number of judges, I wouldn't say a majority, but a number of the judges said, no, I'll conduct the voir dire. Because, Susan Brown was a judge for a very long time. You knew what you were picking a jury for Susan Brown. But if I'm picking a jury with Susan Brown as the judge, and I've got,
for
example, Judge Lori Gray actually hearing it, these are very, very different judicial philosophies.
Yeah.
And Susan Brown may not allow some of the objections that Lori Gray will. Right. And Susan Brown may strike some people that Lori Gray would not. And I'm not trying to throw either under the bus. Full disclosure, when Susan Brown was on the bench, she gave me court appointments. I enjoyed working in her court. Lori Gray currently gives me a lot of appointments. I enjoy working in her court. but they're very different judicial philosophies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I would have no problem, for example, if a retired or a defeated judge like Vanessa Velasquez picked my jury and then tried my case. I would love that because I know what I'm getting.
Sure.
There are some other people that are doing visiting judging. I don't want them anywhere near my case.
I agree.
I don't want them picking the jury. I don't want them hearing the case. These people were defeated for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was politics. Some of it was, Chuck Silverman actually replaced Vanessa Velasquez. He's been a very good judge. I really wish Chuck had run against some of the other Republicans and not Vanessa, and Vanessa was still on her bench. Because, as we all know, we got a very fair trial. We got very, very fair punishment consideration. There were a number of times in Vanessa as a Republican, you could go to her and you could actually get better from her than you could from a jury. Whereas some of the other ones, no, I've absolutely got to go to the jury because this judge, if my client's convicted, is going to light them up.
Right.
And that doesn't matter that they're a veteran suffering from PTSD. It doesn't matter that they were, molested as children. They don't care. What's the maximum? Here you go. Fortunately, at the moment, a number of these judges have insisted that they're going to pick their own juries down there, which means either their courts are closed or it's a visiting judge while they're picking a jury.
Really quick, Judge Johnson said once we seat the jury in her court, it's going to be in the ceremonial courtroom. She has changed the counsel tables where there will be kind of like equal distance from the gallery where the jury is going to sit, and the jury is going to sit on one end of the gallery. So if you're looking in the courtroom, they have the TV that's usually right above the where the jurors sit. That's actually going to be the witness stand, and the jury is going to be on the far right side of the aisle, all the way back closest to the witness stand, which is now under the TV in the jury box. She's changed the counsel tables to where they're kind of equidistant, both looking at the jury box with the jury kind of to the side, and that there's going to be a questioning podium that you will go and ask questions from. Not a podium; it's an area where you're going to be equidistant from the jury, and you'll be able to move about.
Well, my biggest question on that, JV, is where's the public going to sit?
Exactly.
So
there's all kinds of
the
questions.
The public has a right to view these trials, and with respect, the jury box is there for a reason. They are kept contained. They are kept out of sight range of certain things. The family of the complaining witness is now sitting there making hand movements, and they're all sitting in the gallery.
Yeah.
Okay. The family of the defendant is sitting there, and they're making hand movements in the gallery. I mean, you're sitting on a jury. You're sitting in a jury, and let's say it's a murder, and you make eye contact with somebody on the jury, and then down low, not up where I'm doing it here, you go, why are we doing this?
Yep.
Exactly. And you got to keep in mind
and the
how
idea
many
that we're just going to wait till it happens is bullshit. I'm sorry, but nevertheless, it's inappropriate. Hey, I haven't dropped an F-bomb yet, and we're 40 minutes into this? Okay.
Yeah, it's been great.
You're already smoking a cigar on television, so whatever.
So that's
well,
what
you got to keep in mind
another way,
how many decades, if not centuries, did just the physical space in the courtroom evolve over time to what it is now, right? And like that, they're just going to come in and rearrange things, and without any consideration for all these concerns and all these problems, And at the end of the day, I just have to ask why. Like, what is the point? I mean, I understand due process and speedy trial rights and things like that, but justice is what's supposed to be coming meted out of those courtrooms.
It would be very, very different, Justin, if somebody is insisting on their right to a speedy trial.
I agree. Sure, I agree with that.
That's a completely different animal.
Right. Okay? And like you said, those are, if we had 10 more people, we could count all those on our hands compared to the, Kim Ogg likes to throw around 90,000 cases that are going on.
And Justin, the thing about the people that are willing
in a pool.
Justin, the thing about the people that are willing to go to trial is we have enough of them that based on what we know about how we're going to be able to pick juries and do all this, that this is at least going to take us to spring break, probably till summer.
Oh, longer than that. They're only picking 2 juries at a time.
Resolved the virus issue, or we have figured out how this needs to go. So let the volunteers go.
Do we know where they're? So one of the questions that still remains is where they're going to deliberate. I think they're going to deliberate in another courtroom.
Yeah,
across the hall.
So they're only going to be using half the courtrooms. You're going to have 2, maybe 3 places to pick juries, and let's say you do that every single day. You're going to get a backlog once you get over to the courthouse, and it's like, oh wait, no, you can't use that courtroom because the jury in that courtroom is going to start deliberating in there sometime in the next day, 2 days, week, whatever. This is just a cluster.
And even though misdemeanors aren't really the driving force, because most misdemeanors are on bond, let's just use it because it's an easier way to talk about the courtrooms. You've got court 1 and court 2 across the hall from each other. You got court 3 and court 4 across the hall from each other.
They're next to each other.
Court 2 and court 4 share a common hallway. Court
no, you have it backwards, but it doesn't matter.
Court 1 and 3 share a common hallway. That means one of those courts is out of business as soon as the jury needs to deliberate or take a break. But let's get a little bit deeper on that for just a second, JB, if you'll let me. So, Court 1 has picked the trial. They've got a jury in the box. Court 3 is trying to handle their docket. They've got people in the courtroom. They're touching things. They're exposing. They're breathing on things. Okay? Now all of a sudden you're going to retire the jury there. When are we going to wipe that down? We got to have a full deep scrub going on, as needs to be done for everything on this virus. Nobody, I would hope, is discounting the virus. Okay?
Right.
Look, again, I mean, my conservative bona fides are pretty established. I mask. I'm not real happy if the government tells me to do it. I don't have a problem with, or mandates me to do it. I don't have a problem with being told, hey, you really need to do this, and I do it. It's smart, okay?
You're a firefighter. I hope that's not too hard for you to get.
But, you've got somebody who's a defendant, or his lawyer, or somebody from the probation department that is refusing to mask, and they're breathing on things. Again, people touch things. People are sitting in these courtrooms. Well, it's just their shirt and their pants. No, it's not. They put their hands out on the bench. Mm-hmm. They put their hands on the seat.
They touch their face, 30 times every minute? 5 minutes?
How are you going to clean all this stuff when they say, hey, we got to bring the jury over there in 10 minutes? There's no way to get everything cleaned that fast. You just can't do it. So now you're going to stick them all in a jury room they're not supposed to be in, so now they're not social distancing. You're going to make everybody sit in the courtroom and stare at each other until something happens. This is not intelligent.
How do you even do bathroom breaks? Right? Judges used to give, how do you even do bathroom breaks? Judges used to give 35 to 65 people 5-10 minutes to go to the bathroom, and everybody could go crush into the restroom,
A
do their
bathroom
business,
break
and come
is going
back
to be
out.
at least 30 minutes to allow people to go.
One or two in the bathroom at a
how
time.
do you use the public bathrooms to make it go down easier? Again, this is the public that's been in there. Lord knows who hasn't washed their hands. Unfortunately for the audience, I'll share some things they don't want to hear. There are people who go in there and have sex. There are people who go in there and pleasure themselves. There are people who go in there and decide they're going to hawk up a loogie and spit. How do you take care of all of this? You can't do it.
Right.
Speaking of people having sex at the courthouse and Kim Og turning a blind eye.
Where's this going?
I'm talking about Kim Og not wanting to give out offense reports of things that she holds very close and dear to her.
I don't know how you got that transition, but okay.
Yeah. Speaking of politics.
So here's the deal. Somebody set it up for us, huh? So Goins, it revolves around the Goins case. There's some officers that are now indicted, and everybody championed that, and everybody was like, "Oh, Ogg's finally doing the right thing." And then when these individuals have a right to have proper representation, and defense lawyers are doing what they're supposed to do and requesting things under applicable law, Kim Og, District Attorney Og, says, "Nope, sorry, these are work product. These are our work product because we did the investigation ourselves, not the cops, and doesn't want to provide offense reports and other pieces of evidence that may or may not assist in their defense, but that's neither here.
No. 39 it's not 3914H or J. It's 3914A.
Yeah.
They are, as soon as practical, they shall turn over blah blah blah, including offense reports. It's specifically enumerated in there.
This is absolute horse pucky. Okay.
Yeah.
This is crap. Because what winds up happening, I mean, really, if they wanted to be jerks, and I haven't read any of this, 3914 specifically refers to police reports, which means I don't get the stuff from the sheriff's office. Okay? And we all know they meant law enforcement. What this establishes, and the Goins case obviously is an egregious, denial of constitutional rights, abuse of law enforcement. But what this does, if she prevails, is allows them to hugely expand the district attorney's office investigative unit and say, no, it's us. You guys don't get it. And that's wrong. That is not the intent behind the law. She's actually inviting the legislature to correct a problem in the law because it does specifically refer to police. So technically, argument is sheriffs, constables, they're not part of it. Private investigators that are, hired to do it, they're not part of it. And this is crap. This is just what, in my view, District Attorney Ogg is fighting a contested election. This Republican will be voting for Kim Ogg because everybody I've talked to about Van Huffman, former
Mary
Houston
Nan
Police Officers Union lawyer, former prosecutor up in Montgomery County, which is a fascist county. The way Brett Ligon runs his office. Once again, back to people called Brett. But
that's okay place for someone. That's okay for a Brett. Supreme Court, I have issues with.
Everyone I've talked to from the Montgomery County District Attorney's office and everybody I've talked to on the criminal defense bar from Montgomery County has told me she thought he was too soft. The last thing we need is that coming
she thought
here.
Brett Ligon was
now,
too soft.
Unfortunately, Kim Ogg, she's got this fight with law enforcement at the moment. And so she's fighting these battles she doesn't really need to fight. Okay?
What is
you're going to win
hide?
anyway. Harris County is blue. You're going to win. So
she's not, whether she wins or loses, she's not going, there's nothing she can do to turn the support, the law enforcement support for Mary Nan Huff away from Mary Nan Huff. I mean, she's a police officer's dream as a district attorney. So if Kim Ogg is trying to garner any votes away from her, stop doing that. Just like help with voter turnout for the Democrats and keep your seat. Because I do think there's a chance that high up on the ballot, she could, without a straight party ticket anymore, there's a chance Kim Ogg could not be district attorney.
What did her investigation uncover? What is so crazy?
I suspect, JV, that's exactly what they don't want people to know. I suspect they're going to want to put a gag order on the lawyers involved for those police officers because there's going to be things about other police officers they don't want getting out.
That's exactly right. It's going to be a bigger problem than we've realized.
They're going to expose rat cops and bring down a whole department. That's what I think is going to happen. I mean, some of the stuff got out that they found out, and they've sponsored half of the cases that these officers are involved in.
And again, we know there are officers who are unindicted that literally there are prosecutors who are like, I will not sponsor his testimony.
Right.
Here's a sweetheart deal. Here's a dismissal. I'm getting rid of this. These guys are not indicted, but they're dirty, and everybody knows they're dirty, and they weren't part of this, but they got found out, and they don't want that coming out because how many more additional cases go away?
Speaking
I'm sure
of
it's
cases,
more than 100.
Yeah,
it might be north of 1,000, and if it's north of 1,000, that's a real problem for the district attorney's office.
And it's a real problem for the public. We need to be able to trust that police officers who have great power.
It kind of shows that there's a reason to have some problems with trusting the police department.
Right.
What's the backlog in cases that Miss Ogg has? Isn't it like 1 million? It's like 80,000.
It's all her. It's all their problem. I don't know. I don't keep count of her cases. I keep count of my cases.
There's a number. It's like 100,000 or something backlog, isn't it?
88,000.
Well, 88,000 cases.
That's the number she throws around.
Trials into March 2022, whatever it was. That's incredible.
Let's recognize a political reality, which again, we're pursuing justice, but unfortunately, there's a political component to it. Kim Ogg wants more prosecutors. Having a lot more cases gives her a better argument. She's going into an election where she hopes to keep the pro-police voter at least on the sideline because the Houston Police Officers Union is so much against her. So having lots of cases and all this is helpful. I would hope, and I suspect, that in November, we're going to see a sea change where a lot of the crap cases are going to get dumped.
You're going to have to.
A lot of the cases that where they've overcharged are either going to get reduced to a proper charge through plea bargains or reduced so that way they're tried appropriately.
It's just the only problem with
I'm not throwing stones at Ogg. Really, I mean, trust me, I know there are a lot of people who do. I've already told you this card-carrying Republican is absolutely going to vote for the devil I know and not the devil I don't. So I will absolutely support Kim's reelection, but I am hopeful that once we get past this election, that the people around here, who we all know, because many of them worked with us for years, will be able to convey on her and on other people in the office, and I really suspect it's more other people, not so much Kim, as to say, you know what, get rid of it. It's garbage. Get rid of it. It's a good case, but this is massively overcharged. Drop it down to what it is. Unfortunately, with COVID, we've had a number of clients who haven't been able to get out. So, here's the deferred your client probably should have gotten, or here's time served on the lesser charge. Get out of here.
Yeah, the only problem with the whole premise of that, David Ryan, is that you're forgetting that it's 2020 and everything that we think is going to go right goes wrong, and it goes as wrong as it possibly can. And your premise is that Kim Ogg's going to win and then not feel the political pressure
Jason,
anymore. I'm not there yet.
Jason, I am still waiting for the flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz. I think that's coming in November.
And that may be in the form. That may be in the form of Mary Ann Huff.
November for the flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz invade.
Yeah. We got 1 minute left. I love it. We could end with the monkeys from Wizard of Oz.
Well, we really needed to talk about Breonna Taylor, and there's a lot to unpackage there. I don't know enough about Kentucky law, so maybe we can talk about that next week or next time we're on. And I can do a little research on Kentucky law.
This is what I would say on this. And at Simple Justice, I think, had a great blog on it. What happened there was horrible. It was wrong. Those of us who work in criminal justice know it was legally the correct decision. The cops had a valid warrant. Unfortunately, it was the wrong address. They didn't know that. The boyfriend shot first. They returned fire. She very unfortunately was killed. She should not have been. Say her name. But the reality is that the Attorney General's decision on the law was correct. The law needs to be changed, but on the law, it was correct.
Grand jury should have done like they do every one of our clients. They should have indicted them and then let the trial court work it out.
Yeah.
Like I'm just, I'm not saying that they should have been that they're guilty of anything.
Absolutely not.
Fair enough.
Anybody else?
I'm with Dave. I'm gonna put my defense lawyer hat on and say absolutely not. I'm
gonna put on my activist hat and say they should have been indicted.
If you're a defense lawyer, you're defending the cop.
We are out of time. Love talking about CJC's the CJC jury trials. Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for having me.
Thank you, David.
Again, thanks to the Community Volunteer Fire Department for letting me have the night off. Hopefully, again, give me notice 6 weeks out, and we'll see what we can do.
We'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
Adios, amigos. Cue the music.
Right. Thanks, Mark.